I was on a red-eye flight to Seattle, holding my 7-month-old daughter while she slept against my chest, and I had less than $12 left in the world, not just in my wallet. I mean, everything. And I had just realized it wasn't enough to buy her formula when we landed. That thought didn't hit all at once. It just stayed there, quiet, heavy, like something sitting on my chest that wouldn't move. The cabin lights had dimmed. Most people were already asleep or pretending to be. I sat there adjusting the blanket around my daughter, even though it didn't need fixing, just to keep my hands busy. Her fever had broken a few hours earlier. I should have felt relief. Instead, all I could think about was what came next, because one problem had ended and another one was already waiting. I reached into the worn canvas pouch on my lap, slowly, like I was trying to delay the moment I had to face it. I felt the tissues first, then the pacifier, and then the coins. I took them out and placed them on the tray table, one at a time. I tried to be quiet, but every small sound still felt too loud in the silence around me. Quarters, dimes, nickels, a few pennies. I counted in my head. 11美元72美分. That was everything I had left. The plan had sounded simple when I made it. Fly overnight to Seattle, land, buy formula for Lily, take a bus before noon, and make it to the funeral home. My brother would be there. I needed to be there too. But formula costs more when you don't have enough. I had checked before boarding, hoping I was wrong. 13美元59美分 with tax. And sitting there in seat 21A, holding my daughter, I was $1.87 short of feeding her. It's a small number until it's the only one that matters. That kind of short doesn't make you panic right away. It just sits there, steady, pressing into your chest, not letting you breathe all the way. I knew what could happen. I had read about it too many nights, trying to be prepared, and wishing I didn't understand it so clearly. I didn't cry. Crying doesn't fix numbers. So I gathered the coins back into the pouch, trying not to think about the sound they made. That's when I noticed the napkin. It was sitting on my tray, folded neatly. I knew it hadn't been there before. On top of it was a $50 bill. I turned my head slightly toward the man sitting next to me. He didn't look at me, didn't smile, didn't react. He just kept his eyes on the screen in front of him. Then he said calmly, without turning, "You dropped this," just like that. He didn't ask. He didn't make it awkward. He gave me a way to take it, without having to explain anything. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, because if I did, it would turn into something else, something heavier than I could carry in that moment. So I picked up the napkin, unfolded it, and slipped the bill into my pouch, quietly, like it had always been mine. I turned back to the window and stared into the dark. I didn't speak for the rest of the flight, but something inside me eased, just a little, not because the problem was gone, but because, for the first time in 2 days, I didn't feel completely alone. We landed just after 1:47 a.m. People woke up, grabbed their bags, turned their phones back on, and moved on with their lives. I stayed in my seat a little longer, holding Lily close, feeling her steady breathing against me. By the time I stepped off the plane, it was past 2:10. Seattle smelled like rain. The airport was quiet. Most of the shops were closed. A few cleaning crews moved in the distance. Announcements echoed through the terminal, repeating every few minutes. I found a bench near baggage claim and sat down. It was cold against my back. I held my daughter closer and dialed the shuttle number I had saved before leaving Austin. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Another company closed. I opened a rideshare app and refreshed the screen. The fare was too high. I refreshed again. Still too high. And that's when it became clear. The problem hadn't gone away. It was still right there with me. Different place, same reality. And at 2 a.m., in a city that wasn't mine, holding a baby who depended on me, I didn't have a next step anymore. I turned my phone off and just sat there, because I didn't have a plan anymore, not a real one. People walked past me, pulling their suitcases, focused on their own lives. No one looked at me, and honestly, I didn't expect them to. Lily moved in my arms and pressed her face into my neck. She was warm, too warm, and that small weight against me made my chest tighten, because she trusted me, and I didn't even know what I was going to do. Next, you okay? I knew that voice right away. I turned and saw him. Nathan, the man from the plane. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't trying to get my attention. I'm fine, I said. Too fast. The kind of answer that means the opposite. He didn't argue, just nodded once. You got someone picking you up? I paused, because it would have been so easy to lie. Just say yes, end the conversation. But I didn't. No, I said. Not anymore. He looked around the empty terminal, then back at me. I've got a car. I shook my head right away. You don't have to do that. I know, he said. Calm, steady. I'm not trying to fix anything. Just offering you a ride. I looked down at Lily, then back at him. Please, he said quietly, let me do one decent thing tonight. That line stayed with me. Not dramatic, not vague, just real. I didn't have a good reason to say no, so I nodded. Okay. The parking garage was cold, the kind of cold that makes everything feel heavier. His car was parked near the exit. Black SUV, clean, quiet. He opened the door for me, helped me settle Lily in the back seat, then got in without saying much. Inside, it was warm, calm, like a different world from where I had just been sitting. We drove for a while without talking. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't have the energy to question anything anymore. Then I said it, because it felt wrong not to. I'm here for my brother's funeral. He glanced at me. I'm sorry. I nodded, looked out the window. He was 24, worked at a machine shop. There was an accident. Saying it out loud didn't make it feel real. It just made it feel heavier. What was his name? He asked. Daniel. Daniel Carter. He went quiet. The car slowed at a red light. Then he said, almost under his breath, I think I knew him. I turned to him. What? He didn't answer right away, just held the wheel a little tighter. Then the light turned green, and we kept moving. But after that, the silence felt different, not empty, like something was about to come out. The funeral home sat at the edge of the city, quiet, still. I stepped inside, holding Lily close. My arms were tired, but I held her tighter anyway. I hadn't cried, and that scared me a little. The room smelled like flowers and old wood. People stood around, speaking softly. At the front, there was a photo. Daniel, my little brother, same face, same smile. For a second, I couldn't move, because that picture looked like him. But it didn't feel like him. Nathan walked in behind me. I didn't even notice when. He stopped, then slowly stepped closer to the front. Then he said quietly, That's him. I turned. What do you mean? He didn't answer right away. He just kept staring at the photo. Then he took out his wallet, opened it, and pulled out an old picture. Worn, folded. He held it next to the frame. Same shirt, same smile. I kept this, he said. My chest tightened. 4 years ago. Your brother saved my life. Everything in me froze. I don't understand. He nodded slightly. It was a construction site. I was funding the project. A steel beam came loose. I didn't see it. He looked at me. He pulled me back right before it hit. I felt my grip tighten around Lily without realizing it. He didn't tell me his name, Nathan said. I had to ask around just to get this photo. He didn't want anything. He just left. I shook my head slowly. He never told me. My voice dropped. He just said he worked late that day. Nathan looked at me, and for the first time, his voice wasn't steady anymore. He gave me a second chance. A small pause, and I never got to thank him. I didn't say anything right away, because my mind was still trying to catch up with what he had just said. 4 years ago, my brother saved his life. I looked at Daniel's photo again, and suddenly something about it felt different. Not just loss anymore, but something I hadn't seen before. He always said, if you can help someone, just do it. Don't make a big deal out of it, I said quietly. Nathan nodded, his eyes still on the photo. That sounds exactly like him. There was a pause, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like something had just connected, something that had been waiting longer than both of us knew. I looked at him. He would have liked you. Nathan let out a small breath, almost like he'd been holding it in. I wish I had the chance to thank him. I didn't answer, because I knew that chance was gone. But somehow, him standing there still mattered. By the time I got back to the motel, it was late. Everything felt slower, quieter. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it for a second. Lily shifted in my arms, and I felt it immediately. She was burning again, that kind of heat that makes your stomach drop before you even check. I laid her down quickly, reached into my bag. I already knew. Nothing. No formula. No medicine. No backup plan. Just empty space where things used to be. I sat down on the edge of the bed and pressed my hands against my face. Not crying, just trying to keep myself from falling apart. Then there was a knock. Soft. One knock. Then another. I froze. Nobody should have been there. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. Nathan. I hesitated, just for a second, because I didn't want him to see this part of my life. But he already had, so I opened the door. He stood there in the cold night air, jacket damp, hair slightly wet, holding 2 bags. I thought she might need this, he said. Simple. Inside the pharmacy bag, fever medicine, thermometer, diapers, formula, everything I didn't have, and in the other bag, food, still warm. I stepped aside without saying anything. He walked in quietly, didn't look around, didn't make me feel judged, just set the bags down. Has she been sleeping? A little, but the fever's back. He nodded, checked the thermometer, handed it to me. Let's check first. I held Lily, watching the numbers rise. Nathan sat on the other bed, quiet, steady. Then the beep, too high. I didn't need to say it. He already knew. He opened the medicine, measured it carefully. Do you want me to? I nodded. He moved closer, slow, careful, speaking softly to her. She took the medicine, a small sound, then settled. I watched him. You didn't have to come, I said. I know, he answered. So why did you? He took a breath. Because I keep thinking about that day. His voice stayed low, steady. It wasn't some big dramatic moment. Everything just happened fast. He looked at me. We were at a job site, 2nd floor. Part of the structure gave way. I didn't even see it coming. My chest tightened. He grabbed me, pulled me back, right before the floor collapsed. For a second, I couldn't move. He didn't stay, didn't wait, just made sure I was okay and walked away. I shook my head slowly. He never told me. Nathan nodded. That sounds like him. We sat there in silence for a moment. Lily moved again, softer this time. Hungry. My hand shook slightly when I reached for the formula. Nathan stood before I could say anything, walked to the counter, started preparing the bottle. Slow, steady, like he didn't need to be told what to do. And for the first time that night, I wasn't trying to hold everything together by myself. I didn't say anything. When Nathan handed me the bottle, our fingers touched for a second. Nothing big, just real. I held Lily close and fed her slowly. Thank you, I whispered. That was all I had left in me. Nathan sat back down and didn't try to fill the silence. He just stayed. For the next 20 minutes, nothing needed to be said. Rain tapped against the window. Lily drank slowly. The room stayed dim, and for the first time in months, I wasn't carrying everything alone. Not saved, not anything dramatic, just not alone. When I woke up, the light in the room was gray. My back ached from holding Lily all night, but her fever had finally dropped. She was breathing steady. Nathan was gone. That made sense. People don't stay. I told myself that before I could feel anything else. My phone buzzed. One message from my uncle. 9 a.m. Evergreen Hill. No reception after. New time. No space to think. I got dressed fast, wrapped Lily tight, and stepped outside into the cold morning. Then I saw it. Nathan's car. Still there. He stepped out with 2 coffees and a small bag. Sleeves rolled up, no act, no distance, just him. You didn't think I'd leave without saying goodbye, did you? I looked down. I thought last night was just a moment. He handed me a cup. Funeral coffee, he said. It's always worse than people admit. I almost smiled. I have to go, I said. My uncle's waiting. You're not asking, he said. I'm driving. The road was quiet. Trees blurred past. Lily fell asleep again, her hand wrapped around my sleeve. I stared ahead, then finally said it. He died working nights. Nathan didn't interrupt. He was trying to send me money for diapers. My voice tightened. He never even met her. That one landed harder than everything else. He used to fix broken things, radios, fans, anything. I swallowed. He said if he could fix something, maybe he wasn't broken either. A breath, sharp, but nobody fixed him. Nathan kept his eyes on the road. I used to think people earned everything, he said, that if you were struggling, you just hadn't done enough. A pause. But that's easy, when you've never had to carry too much. Silence filled the car. Then he said quietly, some people don't get to fall apart, because too many others need them standing. I looked at him. Yeah, the cemetery was small, wet, quiet. Uncle Ray stood near the grave, nodded once, then stepped away. I knelt down and placed Daniel's last card by the stone. You're stronger than you think, and I love you anyway. My eyes burned. Still no tears. Nathan stayed behind me, giving space. When I stood, I asked, without turning, why are you really here? He didn't rush the answer. On that plane, I saw someone trying not to fall apart. I turned to him. And I think I'm done pretending people are okay, just because they don't ask for help. Cold wind moved between us. I held Lily tighter. I'm not okay, I said, but I don't want to be someone's project. Nathan met my eyes. You're not. Nathan held my gaze and said it quietly. You're someone I respect, someone who kept going when most people would have broken. That matters to me. He paused for a second, then added in a lower voice, I don't really believe in fate, but I do believe in showing up more than once, until the other person knows you mean it. I looked at him, tired enough to be honest and stubborn enough not to hide it. You think a ride, a cup of coffee, and helping with a motel room changes everything? He shook his head once. No, but it can be a start. We left the cemetery a little before noon. The drive back was quiet, but it wasn't the same silence as before. Something had shifted, not in some dramatic way, just enough that I could feel it. By the time I got back to the motel that night, it was already late, past midnight. I closed the door behind me and stood there for a second with Lily asleep in my arms. The room felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that reminds you how temporary everything is. The roof over your head, the money in your pocket, even your own strength. I opened the diaper bag and checked the formula. Enough for one more bottle. That was it. Then I opened my wallet for the first time since the flight. One $5 bill, 2 quarters. I stared at it for a second, then shut it again. I can't keep doing this, I said out loud, though nobody was there to hear it. Then Lily made a small sound. I laid her down on the bed and touched her forehead. Still hot. Too hot. I grabbed the thermometer from the nightstand. 102.3. My heart started racing before I could even think straight. I started pacing, trying to line up options that didn't exist. Urgent care was too far. I had no insurance, and I still remembered the last time a hospital looked at me first, then at my paperwork, and made it clear I didn't belong there without money. I reached for my phone. No service, just rain ticking against the window, and my own thoughts getting louder. I needed help, and I hated that, especially hated what it meant if I called him. But Lily didn't have time for my pride. I reached into the side pocket of the bag and pulled out Nathan's business card. I stared at his name for a long second before I called. He answered on the second ring, fully awake, steady. "Hello." "It's me," I said, my voice already shaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't know who else to call. Lily's burning up. She needs a doctor." There wasn't even a pause. "Send me the address. I'm coming now." 10 minutes later, headlights filled the motel window. Nathan pulled right up to the door and got out fast, carrying a small medical kit. No questions, no delay. "I've got a pediatrician on call," he said, "but we're going to the hospital first." I got in the back seat with Lily while he drove, and the whole way he didn't waste time asking the wrong questions. He didn't ask why I waited. He didn't ask why I didn't have money. He didn't make me explain my life while my daughter burned in my arms. He just got us there. At the hospital, the woman at the front desk looked over my paperwork and frowned. "No insurance? ER admissions without coverage require a deposit." I felt my whole body go stiff, not because I was surprised, because I was tired of being right. Nathan stepped forward before I could say anything. "She's with me." He handed over his card, calm and direct, and that changed everything faster than anything I could have said. An hour later, Lily was in a hospital room with her fever, finally starting to come down. I sat beside the crib with my hands locked together so tight they hurt. Nathan came in quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. "She's stable," he said softly. "The medication's working." I nodded, but I couldn't answer right away. I just kept looking at Lily, like if I stopped for 1 second, something might go wrong again. Nathan sat across from me and waited a while before he spoke. "I know what this feels like." I looked at him then. "Do you?" He nodded. "I've sat in rooms like this, watching someone I loved hooked up to machines, feeling stupid for waiting too long to ask for help. That hit harder than I expected, because that wasn't pity, that was memory." I looked down at my hands. "I didn't want to owe you," he answered gently. "Then why do you think I keep coming back?" I looked up, too tired to dodge the question. His answer came slow, honest. "Because someone once showed up for me when I didn't deserve it, and maybe I've been waiting a long time to do that for someone else." The room went quiet again, but it didn't feel cold this time. Nathan stood like he was about to leave, and for the first time since I met him, I felt the space he might leave before he had even taken a step. "I'll stay in the waiting room, just in case you need anything," Nathan said quietly. He turned to leave, and I almost let him go, but something in me stopped him. "Nathan." He turned back. "Thank you." My voice cracked. I didn't try to hide it, not just tonight, for not looking at me like I was something broken you needed to fix. His expression softened. Not pity, not distance, just understanding. "You were never a problem," he said. "Just someone carrying more than anyone should have to alone." Then he stepped out, and the room felt different the second he was gone. I sat there for a while, hands still shaking, Lily's tiny fingers wrapped around mine. For weeks, I had felt like everything in my life could fall apart with one wrong step. And now, for the first time, I didn't feel like I was right at the edge anymore. The hallway lights buzzed softly. I was sitting outside the pediatric unit, arms crossed tight without realizing it, breath uneven. Inside, Lily was finally sleeping, her fever breaking after hours of IV fluids. I didn't even notice Nathan coming back until I smelled rain and something minty in the air. He stood in front of me, holding a paper cup. "You look like you haven't had anything warm all day." I hesitated, then took it. "Thanks." We sat side by side, not talking, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that gives you space instead of pressure. "I thought I'd forget about you after the flight," he said after a while. I looked at him. "But I couldn't," he continued, "because I've seen that look before." Something in his voice made me turn fully toward him. "Where?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. "In the mirror. A pause. After my son died." Everything in me froze. "You had a child?" He nodded slowly. 8 months. Heart condition." His voice didn't break, but it didn't need to. "We spent months in rooms like this, hoping, waiting, pretending we had control." He exhaled quietly. "When he was gone, I made myself a promise." He looked at me then, steady. If I ever saw someone standing alone the way I did, I wouldn't walk away. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything, because this wasn't sympathy. This was something deeper. Recognition. "I didn't want to owe you," I said after a long silence. He nodded, like he understood before I finished the sentence. "Then why do you think I keep showing up?" I didn't answer, because I didn't have one. He reached into his coat and pulled out something folded, small, worn. "I found this in my wallet," he said. "I haven't opened that part in years." He handed it to me. My hands moved slower than they should have. I unfolded it. My breath stopped. It was Daniel's handwriting. Messy, rushed, familiar in a way that hit me straight in the chest. "If anything ever happens to me, don't let her try to survive it alone." Underneath, just 2 initials, Day, Say. I stared at it. I didn't cry. Not yet. Because some pain doesn't come out right away. It just sits there, heavy, real. "This isn't your responsibility," I whispered. Nathan shook his head gently. "It's not responsibility." A pause. "It's a choice." We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. Some things don't need words. That night, he didn't leave. He didn't try to get closer, didn't cross any lines, didn't act like he belonged in my life. He just stayed, sitting in that uncomfortable hospital chair, drinking bad vending machine tea, watching through the glass as Lily's breathing finally slowed, and at some point I fell asleep, not because I wasn't scared anymore, but because I wasn't alone. 3 days passed. Lily got better. Her fever was gone. She started eating again, even smiling, grabbing my shirt like she always did. Everything should have felt easier, but I still couldn't sleep, because when things finally get quiet, that's when everything you've been holding back starts catching up. I thought I'd finally sleep that night, but I didn't. I sat in that same motel chair, staring out at a flickering neon sign, Lily asleep behind me, and my head just kept running in circles. Daniel, money, tomorrow, and Nathan. Somewhere along the way, he stopped feeling like a stranger, and that scared me more than anything else. The knock came just after 7 a.m. I opened the door still half asleep. Same oversized shirt, no plan for the day. Nathan stood there, holding a white envelope. He didn't step inside. I didn't want to call. This felt more real. He handed it to me. I opened it right there. A lease. 1 bedroom. Furnished. 6 months already paid. My name on it. I didn't even realize I had sat down until I felt the chair behind me. "No strings," he said before I could speak. "You don't owe me anything. I just thought you needed something that was actually yours." I looked at the paper. Then at him, "I don't understand what this is." "You don't have to," he said. "Not today." An hour later, I was standing in front of a place that didn't feel temporary. Key in my hand, Lily asleep on my shoulder. I opened the door slowly. It wasn't big, wasn't fancy, but it was quiet in a different way, not empty, just waiting. There was a note on the fridge. That was it. No long explanation, no reminder of what I owed. Just that. And somehow that hit harder than everything else. I stood there for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat down, picked up a pen, and wrote to Daniel. "I don't know how to say this without you here. You always told me life doesn't give you anything. You take what you can and keep moving. You'd probably say I'm being weak right now, but today I walked into a place that has my name on it. There's a crib, there's light, and someone helped me get here. Not because I asked, but because you were the kind of person who showed up for people, and somehow that came back to me." My hand stopped there because one thought hit harder than everything else. She laughed today. You never even met her. I sat there staring at that line. That one hurt the most. That night, Lily slept in a real crib for the first time. I sat on the floor, watching her breathe, waiting for something to go wrong, 'cause it always does. But nothing did. And the silence, for once, didn't feel like a warning. Then my phone buzzed. "Nathan, there's the school nearby. Enrollment next week. Thought you should know." I stared at the message, longer than I needed to. Then I typed, "You really think of everything, don't you?" I didn't send it. Not yet. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was deciding. I stared at his message longer than I expected. Then another one came, slower, like he had actually thought about it before sending. "If you ever want to meet again, not because you need help, just as two people, let me know." I didn't reply right away. Instead, I stood up, walked to the light switch, turned it off, then back on. The room changed, just like that. Same space, different feeling. And I stood there for a while, because maybe that's how things start again. Not big, not dramatic, just you deciding to turn the light back on. That Saturday, it rained for the first time in weeks. Not heavy, just steady, enough to make everything look softer. I stood at a crosswalk outside a small bookstore, Lily in one arm, umbrella in the other. She was bundled up, cheeks pink from the cold, her little hat slipping down over one eye. We weren't there for books. We were waiting. A car pulled up, nothing flashy. The door opened. Nathan stepped out. No suit, no distance. Just jeans, a sweater, and a look like life had hit him recently, and he was still catching his breath. We looked at each other, not strangers, not anything defined, just people who had already been through something real. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He looked at Lily. She reached out her hand, grabbing at nothing, like babies do. He gently touched her fingers, careful like it mattered. "She remembers you," I said. He smiled, soft. "Can I show you something?" We drove for a while, past the kind of places where nothing changes, then into the kind where everything already had, until we stopped in front of a narrow brick building, quiet street, nothing special from the outside. There was a small wooden sign above the door, the Camila Project. I didn't say anything. I just looked at it. Inside, it smelled like fresh paint. The walls were clean, simple. Boxes of baby formula stacked neatly. A small play corner, worn toys, bright rugs, a basic exam room, a stethoscope resting on the table, and in the middle, a long table, laptops open, coffee still warm, job forms laid out, everything someone like me would have needed. Before things got this hard, I turned to Nathan, but the words didn't come out right away because I already understood this wasn't about me, not just me. It was about people like me, the ones who don't ask, the ones who keep going until there's nothing left. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel like I was catching up to life anymore. I felt like maybe I had finally stepped back into it. I stood there for a long time after that, Lily breathing softly beside me, the room quiet in a way that didn't feel heavy anymore. And somewhere in that stillness, something finally made sense. For the longest time, I thought being strong meant handling everything alone, not asking, not needing, not letting anyone see you fall apart. But the truth is, carrying everything by yourself doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you tired, and over time, it makes you disappear from your own life. Nathan didn't fix anything. He didn't come in and solve my problems. What he did was something much harder. He stayed. And I think that's what most people actually need. Not advice, not solutions. Just someone who doesn't walk away when things get uncomfortable, when things get real. And if I could say anything to the version of me from a year ago, the one sitting in the dark, trying to convince herself she could survive everything alone, I'd tell her this: you don't have to prove your strength by suffering in silence. You don't have to earn the right to be helped. And letting someone show up for you doesn't make you weak. It just means you're human. And if you're listening to this right now, and something in it feels familiar, maybe you've been carrying more than you should for too long. Maybe you've gotten used to doing everything alone. Then maybe this is your moment to loosen your grip, not all at once, just enough to breathe. Because sometimes the smallest shift is where everything begins to change. This story is inspired by real-life emotions and experiences, retold to share a human message. It doesn't represent any one specific person, but it might reflect something real in you. And if it did, even just a little, leave a word in the comments. Sometimes that's enough to remind someone else they're not alone. And if you want more stories like this, quiet, real, and honest, don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the story you almost scroll past ends up being the one that stays with you the longest.